Hi folks, and welcome back to the vlog. This week we're going to be looking at digital images and copyright thereof. I know this is a big issue for a lot of artists. They're very worried about having their pictures stolen. That's completely understandable. So these are a few tips and tricks to be able to optimize what you're doing without compromising on what you put on your website and what you put out there on Facebook and Instagram and all your social media feeds, because there is a balance between having images on your website with big huge watermarks all over them, which is not great for selling artwork, and between putting up completely huge images on your website that are not got any protection on altogether. So I'm going to cover these elements for you, and I hope these little tips and tricks help. So first up is how to get pictures on your website. I would put a maximum of around about 1500, possibly at most 2000 pixels on the largest side. So that will be tall if it's a portrait or long if it's a landscape. What's really important is to keep the DPI low, so the dots per inch. Now the reason for this is that print needs 300 DPI. So if somebody steals your image and puts it out in a printer, if you've put it up in a large image with 300 DPI, you're basically giving them a chance to do this. So I would drop it down to the lowest level you can without compromising the image quality, and for me that's about 72 DPI. That will be one of the basic low ones. The next thing is the picture quality. So in a JPEG, when you put it up, you have up to, I think, a maximum of 12 points, which is the absolute best you can put, and 1 or 2 which will be pretty disastrous, it'll look ugly. I would put it round about, I normally put it round about 6 or 7. So choose that level of compression when you put it up. The next thing is when it comes to your website, there is this thing called disabled right click. You know, if you can right click on an image, you can save it to your desktop. And most modern websites, if you've got one, will have a disable right click. So you actually can't copy that image and save it to your desktop at all. Better still, if you've got it, cut, copy and paste disabled. That means that if you go onto any of my websites, the Harvard Gallery Co UK, BritishContemporary.art, AmericanContemporary.art, all of them have got this disabled. So if you go onto the biographies and try to copy the text there, it's impossible to do. You can't click and cope on it. So disabled, cut, copy and paste as well. If you've got that on your website, you should do, and if not, there may be a plugin you can get to be able to do that for you, so have a look into that. As mentioned at the very beginning, watermarks are a possibility if they're very, very light, but I'd steer away from them. You know, you're trying to sell your artwork, and anything that mars the look of your artwork is going to mar the possibility that you will be able to sell it. Which is what we're all trying to do here. There are such things as digital copyright marks on them. So what it does is it imprints something digitally onto the image. So if anyone else uses it, copies or pastes it or puts it anywhere, then you can look on the company that you go through and follow through who is stealing your images and using your images. But these are quite costly solutions, so they may not be viable for you, and you still have to do all the work of going to find out who's copied, pasted, used your images, and you then have to follow up and do a chase. Now, on that score, if you believe your copyright has been infringed, the first thing you should do, if it is a Western company, is to write to them a cease and desist letter. And what that means is, it's basically to say, you are using my image without permission, please stop doing it immediately, otherwise I shall take legal action. Usually that will be enough to deter most people from using your image without permission. The big problem will be if it is outside of the Western that doesn't adhere to the copyright treaties rules, like Russia or China. you're pretty much lost. There's not a lot you're going to be able to do about that. I think there are so many more advantages to the web and putting your images out there than there are downsides. So I would not consider not using the web at all just for this small chance that something may happen. Lastly, I want to get on to the subject of social media. Now, when you sign up to social media, you sign their terms and conditions, which nobody reads, of course, you haven't got time, and what you do is you give them, in those terms and conditions, the rights to be able to publish your work on their platforms. Now, the reason they have to do this in law is that if you put something up of yours online, that is being seen all over the world. They're publishing it, in effect. And if they don't have the right to do that, you could take them to court even though you put it up. So you have to give them the right to be able to publish it as part of your terms and conditions. You don't have an option on that unless you don't use the platforms at all. However, they do not own your copyright. So it means that if at some point you decide that there is an issue with an image you've put up, you can take that image down, delete it from Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and at that moment it should be deleted from their platform, and therefore the copyright can't be infringed anymore. However, and there is always a however, if somebody has physically taken your image off the website and republished it themselves on their own timeline, and that has been shared 1,000 times or 100,000 times, there is little you can do about that, unfortunately, because you'd have to find the original source of it and try to take them down on that level. But again, this is a rarity, and so you still hold the copyright to your work even though you give them a license to be able to publish it on that platform. But if you decide to go after somebody, it has happened and people have done it, then good luck to you, and I hope it all works out. But you have to weigh up the energy you're prepared to spend in saving that image from going out against the value that you're going to get of having that image and all your work out in the universe working for you. And as a very last point, I want to touch on the idea of painting from somebody else's photographs. Now, this is a really grey area. If somebody has put something up on a website and you've gone along and found it's a fantastic image and you've downloaded it and you've painted from it, it is in effect somebody else's copyright. However, although this is a grey area, there are some sort of rules to it. If you are painting something, you are creating a new layer of copyright by doing this. So if it is nothing like, in other words, it's not an absolute complete copyright image of the photograph in the first place, that new layer of copyright does give you some rights to be able to do this. I think the people who are doing hyperrealism art or painting something that is so real it looks like the photograph, you're going to have issues, I believe. But people who are doing impressionist works of a painting, that layer of copyright will protect you, and I think you're pretty much covered underneath that. And of course, if you're doing parodies or pastiches of work, that is completely exempt from that kind of copyright anyway. So that is free reign for everybody to do. So thanks for popping in. Have a great week, and I'll be back with you next week. Bye for now.